Okay, cool. So thanks guys for joining. My name is Logan Dagenhart. I'm Partnership Manager here at Refinitiv. And as you're likely aware, we are in the process of a migration from Market QA to our strategic product going forward, QA Direct. And as part of that effort, we've teamed up with partners to assist with the migration and ensure that our clients are receiving an enhanced service and experience with QA Direct. So Kuberre Systems is a company that we partnered with, and we've invited them today to present. They'll be providing an overview of their complementary solution to QA Direct, and then also talking through ways in which they can assist with the migration. We're really excited to work with them and really interested in your feedback and any questions you might have to bring this to our clients. We really want to get this migration, going and with some momentum. So with that, I will turn it over to the Kuberre team. Mark, you can take us through, and guys, feel free to ask questions along the way. We'd like this to be interactive if possible. So with that, Mark.
All right, great. Well, thanks again, Logan, for the invitation and for all the great partnership work all the way along. We do sincerely appreciate the opportunity to work with you all and your customers, hopefully, on making this transition something really positive and great. I took the screen down just for a minute so we can put a little bit of personality behind this and let you see some of the Kuberre team. My name's Mark DeFraya. I work with Kuberre in the capacity of helping focus on growth markets, go-to-market messaging, brand building, things like that. And I'm going to be kind of acting as the MC here today. So you'll hear from me plenty. Used to work for companies like Thomson, one of your prior organizations, New York Stock Exchange, Charles River, folks like that are in different parts of the trading life cycle. So the topic today is obviously pretty near and dear to my heart. And I'll kind of leave it at that and let Kumar introduce himself so we can get into the material.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. This is Kumar Matlapalli, founder and CEO of Kuberre Systems. I'm sure I must have talked to many of you here on the call. So I look forward to the presentation. We want to share our ideas in terms of how we've helped other clients and how much can we actually support as the clients are thinking about migrating to the new platform. What are the things that they need to think about and how we helped our clients. So that's why I'm here. Looking forward to it. Steve, quick introduction from you, Steve Betancourt.
Sure. Steve Betancourt, heading up sales and business development for Kuberre Systems. Been in the sales world about 30 plus odd years. Recent firms have been ICE, S&P, Brown Brothers. So very intimate with data. And I think we got a great product here. And I'm sure Kumar and Mark will actually describe that very well.
Thank you. All right.
And we also have Steve Herrera online. You don't see his picture there, but Steve Herrera, the man behind the curtain. You'll get to meet Steve at some point. We get a little bit deeper into showing a little bit more of the product in kind of a demo fashion later on with clients and such. So we have Team Steve well represented. So with that, Kumar, I think we're ready to jump right in here, don't you?
I think so, Mark.
All right. So let me just kind of put my screen back up here so we're back in the presentation. And like we said, feel free to throw your hand up and ask a question anywhere along the line. I think mostly we have Refinitiv folks here, or you may have some customers with you. We want to make sure you get all your questions answered and you get a level of comfort. After all, today is really about giving you all a sense of what our offering is all about, how it fits with QAD, and how we can support what I've heard a number of times from the team as a customer-driven adoption or a customer-driven migration from legacy platforms onto the new one. So here, I hope what you're going to see is a really great value add that dovetails nicely with that, and one that you find is powerful and exciting to take your operations to the next level in partnership with Refinitiv. So this should get you close. It's not a demo. The idea here is that you should be able to learn enough to know if this is something you want to dig deeper into. And then, of course, we can go down into deeper dive technical details and things that might be a little bit more specific to your shop. But for today, we're going to get you close to what we're all about. And that way you can make that decision on your own and we can take things from there. So a little bit about us. Kuberre's been around for about 20 years. We're leaders in market data, data analytics, data management. We've got a nice pedigree of having worked with some really great customers of all sizes in some of the areas that you see here, both on fundamental and quantitative approaches to building portfolios and managing them. Kumar, you want to speak a little bit more about the legacy of the company since you started it?
Sure. I think before starting Kuberre about 20 years ago, we come from a quant background. We were part of the quant teams at Putnam Investments in Wellington. So that is what actually propelled us to be a data management and analytics firms. And as we are building products, we always have kept that kind of background in mind, and we can think in terms of what the quants expect out of a platform, how they would like to do these backtesting scenarios, how scalable it has to be in performance-wise, the data quality side of it, and even in terms of scalability side of it. Those are the things that we had to think through in terms of providing solutions or bringing about products into the market. So that is our background. We like to think that we think along those lines, and we can help immensely there.
Right. Yeah. So it's really a good been there story. We've lived it on the customer side and really sympathize with the situation and the things that you deal with every day. So that's usually a pretty big comfort. And here's a little bit about the suite of products. We're talking specifically today about one that we call QtPy, QTPY. QtPy stands for Quantitative Techniques Using Python. That's our analytics platform. And we got to that platform organically by starting here in the center with something called Kuberre EDM. That's our enterprise data management platform. Many firms use us to build a data lake that incorporates multiple data feeds, data sources, and downstream processes within their organizations to be able to manage those in a much more efficient manner and grow with the organization over time. And that's a product that goes back quite some time. Very close thereafter, because of all that service that needed to be done with the data, customers asked us to take on some of that management. So we built in something we call data as a service, in which case we look after that system, we look after the data, we deal with the issues that need to be resolved and make sure that the operation is ready with good, clean data, ready to operate every trading day. And as we went through all of that, and of course with the quantitative background of the team, we took it a step further and built this analytics platform because we saw that many firms have got the skill set to either write models in Python or whatever, but struggled to get them to be able to work in a performant manner, interacting with the data that they have. And there was a lot that could be done to facilitate things like collaboration amongst the quant team around the models that are being built or the factors that are being built. So you're going to hear on this call that QtPy has built all those things in. And one of the roots of it is that it's a system that's easy to get up and running relatively quickly so that you can start receiving ROI in a relatively short period of time. Kumar, do you want to add anything to the suite or do you want to drill on?
I think we can move ahead.
Good. So to make this a little bit more tailored to this audience, as we've worked with Logan and the team, we've kind of learned that the organizations that we're talking with today can be in one of kind of three camps. There is the group that uses Market QA today and depends on Market QA for some custom processes or macros that have been built using the tools that were provided with that platform that really need to be accounted for in order to be able to move on to QAD. So there's a group there that we need to work with potentially to take a look at those factors, those calculations, models, whatever has been built, replicate them, test them, and deploy them, hopefully using QtPy in conjunction with QAD so that your organization can make the migration. Market QA clients that don't use those features but may use other kinds of techniques or tools inside the operation that we don't maybe know about today still have potentially a hurdle that's similar to overcome, but also certainly an opportunity to optimize the way that QAD adds value to the organization by adding QtPy to it. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, are those organizations that have already made the move to QAD and would like to add some analytical firepower to that by combining it with a world-class analytics platform that relies on virtualization like QDPI does. So hopefully when you look at this list, you can kind of nest yourself in one of these three groups. And we're going to try to address the things that will be important to each of your groups as we go through the rest of the presentation. Did I miss anything there, Kumar, or we think we're ready to roll?
I think the only thing that I would add to the first point is the way we work with the clients is it depends on the client in terms of what and how much they want to lean on Kuberre. It's just not for us. It's not about giving them software and then let them work through it, but also helping them through the initial stages of conversions through professional services all the way through, and making them secure, making them feel comfortable that at the end of it all, they not only have an ROI in a faster fashion, but also the results that they're getting from the new system are conformant in terms of running parallel production cycles and doing the backtest and comparing the results. We are with the customer from the beginning all the way through until they get into production. So it is up to the clients in terms of how much they want to lean on us, but we do bring all of those capabilities.
Right. So we're going to dive into a little bit more about QDPI now and make the switch. And a lot of our vision for QDPI originated around trying to solve this kind of age-old problem for data shops, and that in order to model data, you've got to spend a lot of time getting access to it and engineering the way that you bring the data together so that it's even clean enough and available enough to be able to do any modeling whatsoever. And, it's a typical 80-20 story in most shops where you spend 80% of the time doing the things that we just talked about, collecting, mapping, and such, and it leaves far too little time for developing ideas and finding alpha and doing the things that you want to do. So what QDPI was designed to do is flip the equation back into balance the way it really should be, where with a minimization of the effort to get access to that data and then go ahead and build the models out and find growth, which is in line typically with what most quant groups are trying to do. So we got there in an interesting way. We kind of looked at the problem and broke it into three key concepts for QDPI. The first one is that when we look at sources of data, whether they're internal coming from systems or it's market data like QAD or other vendors that are coming in from the outside world, what we don't want to do is take all that data, replicate it, and put it in a new data lake and try to have to start something up like that. We want to leave it where it is and make it available through data virtualization. Using the tools that those feeds come with or the APIs or typical connectors that are available, we can bring that data together, make it available in a virtualized platform so that it's available for the data teams to be able to build analytics around. And that's what happens in the third stage, is that we empower the team to be able to use the tools that they like to access and use the data without having to get involved with how the data is served up. And as we get into the conversation, you're going to find that this gets really interesting because the virtualization topic is one that is got multiple levels to it. First is, of course, the rudimentary access to the data in the feeds and making them available commonly and in a performant way is interesting, but also the ability to build custom factors or custom objects that all of the team can use when they want to interact with that data. That can make the performance of the analytics better, as in how fast it can operate. The other thing the platform does that's really great, and I think you'll all find value in, is that it serves as a collaboration platform as well. Each one of these folks on the bottom may have different models that they've built or different factors or things that the whole group wants to depend on and use over and over again. And rather than having to, sneaker net them to each other, the platform allows for all those models to be saved and checked in so that they're available for everyone else. So they're really great upside here for collaboration across the group. Kumar, do you want to talk a little bit more about virtualization, or do you want to touch on it later?
So a couple of points there. One is you may find some of the clients who might have built an EDM already, or do they have a data lake already. So you can imagine one of these upper boxes to be one of those. What we are trying to say is if you have an EDM platform established, well and good, you can overlay QDPI on top of it. So there is a very centralized, centralized way of accessing the data, even if your sources have to change behind the scenes. The second thing, that if the clients don't have EDM, of course, we can actually establish our EDM platform and create that layer as well. So that is the independence between having clients having their own EDM versus having Kuberre EDM. But irrespective, QDPI can actually exist independent of what EDM actually is behind the scenes in terms of the data repositories. The second, on the data virtualization, is many of the times what we are trying to address the needs of the quants is how nimble can they be in terms of bringing in new data in-house. Say, for example, QAD or Refinitiv actually comes with a new data set, and the clients would love to actually get their hands on and test the data set. And with QDPI, what it allows for is that QAD, once the data set is enabled by Refinitiv, we've worked with QAD extensively, and we've done with the SQL Server databases or whatever the client's choice is. Once the data set is available on the QAD platform, clients would seamlessly access that as if they don't have to build the loaders, they don't have to build any of the sophisticated IT work that goes on in terms of incorporating or testing a new data set. Once the data set is available, within 2 hours, if not less, the data set is available to the downstream clients, and they know exactly how the data is accessible to them, because the APIs that are built in such a way that it is agnostic to the data that is actually lying in terms of the data repositories. That is the power of the data virtualization. And that is why we see the collaboration actually helping, all three parties involved. It's Kuberre, it's Refinitiv, it is the client, most importantly, how we enable and create, being nimble in terms of creating these new data sets for them so that they can actually build models. 3 weeks of building models versus 3 weeks of doing data engineering side of it. So that is, I hope that the value prop is coming across. That's what we want to drive with this slide.
Great. And this next slide will take it a level deeper. So if you're kind of looking for a little more about what's going on in the middle here, this picture takes it a level deeper to talk about whether it's the EDM or it's another set of data sources. What's happening in the middle? What is QDPI actually doing to make all of this happen, and how it actually acts as a platform for the quant side of the house to take advantage of. So again, Kumar, I'm going to ask you to take the ball here and walk us through the elements you want to highlight for the group.
Sure. So some of this that we wanted to highlight here is on the left side is where your data repositories are. One of the things that we want to stress is some of these actually could be on cloud and some of these could be on-prem. So QDPI doesn't really care where exactly the data is, as long as it can access it through the SQL procedures or through a REST API or whatever, it has the ability to connect to it. And not only that, sometimes clients may have large tick data files in some kind of S3 on AWS or massive disk. QDPI also can actually read those files seamlessly and expose them through the same set of APIs as if they are in a database as well. So that is on the left side where the data resides and what happens. You would see that, and on the middle is the QDPI layer. QDPI does two things. One is, as we said, data virtualization, which is about actually exposing this data through common set of APIs. The reason why the distributed computing that is there is because it's highly scalable. If you were to have, currently we serve close to about 2 to 3 terabytes of data through QDPI. And if it were to jump to 6 terabytes, it is a matter of adding more nodes in the cluster. That's about it, right? The second one is the federated data model. This is what allows us to actually integrate new data feeds in an expedited manner, thus reducing time to market of new data sets, new ideas by the quants. On the right side, what you see is the access. So once they have the data that they can actually use, the quants can use the Jupyter Hub environment, Spider, VS Code, whatever the IDE that they are comfortable with in terms of building the models, as well as the REST APIs if they want to consume the data into a downstream application, like if they're doing some Excel modeling and so on, as well as some BI tools if they want to analyze some of the data that's coming out once the factors are built out, once the scores are generated, once these multi-factor models are generated, you can integrate that into something like a Tableau as well. So on the right side is all about access. You have immense capabilities, openness in terms of accessing this data. One final thing on this slide is you will see that some are just plus R, some are read write. That is because some of the things that we've actually built into the platform is the ability for the quants not only create these multi-factor models. As I said, I think today we have some clients, we have about 12 to 15 models with about 800 factors in a multi-nested tree. So to support those, once you create that, how do you save those factor definitions back? How do you share these building blocks across the teams? How do you eliminate key person risk? So all of that is considered, and to support that is where you have the data analytics layer where the model definitions are captured in a source code control system in a centralized fashion and so on. And ultimately the data that needs to get saved onto the database, that can actually flow through as well on the left. So that's why you see some repositories with read-write capabilities and some with only read. So for example, the data coming from QAD, one can envision that it's all read-only by the quants because these are cast in stone data sets, that is the market data, whereas the alphas that they are actually creating, those are read-write because you can actually retrieve the historical alphas, but as well as you can actually create new scores on a daily basis. So that is a distinction that we would like to make, and all of that is part of the platform.
Excellent, excellent. I think if you were to take a step deeper with us in a follow-up, you're going to see a lot of the things that you see on the access side, the Jupyter Hub, Jupyter Notebook. And I think it's worth mentioning here that, what we've spent our time on is the part that really makes everything perform extremely well, be available, and then be ready to add those data sets or add complexity over time. We really didn't want to spend, and it's not smart to spend the time building tools that replace the ones that everybody already likes to interact with when it comes to model development and such. So if you were to see a demo from us, you'd see, our guys using Jupyter Notebook and such to call up the data that's available, make sure you know what is there, see models being built, factors being built, all using tools like that. That's because that's typically what we're finding in the market that people want to interact with. So it's, I think, a nice marriage between taking a tool like that otherwise would require you to go source the data and wait for it to load and lots of other time-consuming steps, and realize the value that you get natively from them, but with the firepower that comes from having the virtualization layer of QtPy running in the background to make it all perform really well. And with that, this kind of rounds out the way that we look at the capabilities of the platform. Kumar, I know you wanted to walk through a few of these that maybe weren't touched in the last slide for completeness. Sure. Do you want to pick up a couple of those?
I think here, in summary, one can actually go through these slices, and the intention is not to go through each slice, but hope you can actually get the idea behind the core capabilities of it. One thing that I will summarize this slide is there is another tug of war that actually goes in the quant world. One is the amount of flexibility that they need versus the IT standards that they have to comply to from a compliance perspective, right? So those are the things that we have considered in terms of how do you actually maintain that fine balance between giving quants all the flexibility that they need, but at the same time providing an organizational platform structure around it so that they are still conformant to what the enterprises actually look for, the IT teams look for, what compliance teams look for. That is where these enterprise IT standards, collaboration, and all of that pies come in, on top of the core capabilities of virtualization, how do you aggregate the data from multiple sources, and so on. So that is, we had to think through all of the necessities that we expect quants to be able to use and provide that in a single unified platform.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When you think about your operation and how you make decisions about what data or what models need to be used as foundational for the whole team, that can all be managed and version controlled and released just like any software would be. And that's really a lot of what you're getting out of that component in the bottom left that Kumar was talking about. So I think that's really worthy of note. It gives you fantastic control over model development, deployment, and continuous improvement as you build up, your use of the system. We expect at some point here, folks are going to want to understand how do we get you from where you are to where you're going, and this is the methodology that's been in place that has served us well with many customers. And Kumar, did you want to touch on a couple of these?
Sure.
We talked a little bit about them at the beginning.
Yeah, this is sure. This is something that the clients need to think about when they're thinking about migrating from either market QA from a platform to QAD. It is not. We don't want to. These are the 5 streams of thought processes that they need to have, and those turn out to be the 5 streams of work that one has to do. One is the data sources and data model. So how are they different from if they are getting the data in a certain format versus in the QAD, or if they're trying to migrate from some other vendor to QAD. We need to map those data sources and how we're going to provision those data sets. The second one is the historical data. I'm sure the quants have built out historical factor scores, historical vendor data that they've archived, and they would like to bring that forward for their backtesting purposes. And the third one is the business logic. Here is where they might have built out custom factors, custom macros, that they've built out, and also they need to think about the core functionality of split adjustments, currency adjustments, and so on over a period of time, so that the factors are conformant. And then when you actually implement it in the new platform, they match with the old. The fourth one, after you've done all this work, then you kind of get into this production parallel side where you are absolutely testing the data between the current system versus the new system in a substantial production parallel, because you not only are worried about today's scores, but also how does your historical scores actually compare from the new system versus the old. And finally, the application interfaces. You might have written based on your old system, there are a bunch of reports, some kind of a pre-trade optimization files that you may have to send to the cloud, downstream. How do you create those files from the new system is another stream of work clients have to think about. So all of this, quite important. We just wanted to present this to you as well as the clients to say that these are some of the aspects that you want to think about. We've done this. We've kind of guided our clients through this process over the last few years, and that is what we wanted to share here.
Cool. Kind of a cool anecdote, I think, goes along with the last one that you mentioned, Kumar, and the group might get some value out of this because some of those visualization tools are becoming so popular, like a Tableau or what have you. And what we've kind of found is we're digging into the conversations about optimizing the way analytics are done, that the outcomes in many cases are going into things like a Tableau for visualization. And there are some shops that rely on that a little heavily for analytics in cases where it might be better served on an analytics platform and served up to be visualized. And in that context on the far right, we may find that the conversations get kind of interesting about, maybe some of the jobs should run on the QtPy side and the results displayed through the visualization tools that you might have in-house. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and also on the quant side, obviously, the clients may be using Clarify or something like that in terms of an interface. We need to think about how the new this data provisioning actually works with those platforms. That is some experience that we have as well. So the quant side, it's a little different, but our thought process in terms of enabling these downstream applications remains the same.
Good.
Yeah.
And, just to, we'll keep an eye on the clock here because we wanted to leave a good 10 minutes or so for Q&A. We thought we'd leave you with a little bit of a customer success story. So here's a nice quote from one of our clients that has actually implemented our complete stack of solutions from the EDM all the way up through QT. And a really great quote here that we like to, point to because it talks not only about the technology, but also the kind of relationship that we really want to have with everyone. So, finding the right balance between giving quants the flexibility they need while establishing a platform that is operationally sound, scalable, next gen, ready, and most importantly, secure is always a challenge, but it's exactly what we were able to achieve with Kuberre Solutions. So we take that real seriously. And this picture lays out a little bit of what that story looked like with regard to the market data that was on the table up in the top left, internal data sources on the bottom left, and what's going on in the middle with regard to our data lake and how QT was involved. And Kumar, I wonder if maybe you touch on a couple of high points from that customer.
Sure. I think this client's story was they had three different quant platforms across three different groups. One was using Market QA, one was using some arcane technology and so on. So they had three different sets of groups that we had to, from an COO perspective, they had to consolidate all these three into one. That was the goal. And to say that, I want to enable cross-pollination of ideas, reusing of ideas. So that's how the project has come about. And of course, bringing QAD as the backbone for the data source for the market data. So that's how the proposition was, or at least, the vision was. And that's what we had done for the client in a very short period of time.
So in this particular, we moved a lot of models and factors that had been built. Can you give a little bit of a sense of maybe some of the weight of that?
Sure. They had about 9 models all in all, some domestic, some global models across covering all of the equity side of it. And the data size was about 1.5 terabytes of data across 30 odd different data sets that they were considering. And also, obviously, when you do something like this, it's not QAD is 90% of their market data or 80% of their market data, but there were other data vendors that they wanted to integrate into the system. Along with their internal data sources. We kind of simplified it into Bloomberg and benchmarks, but there were other market data sources as well. So that is where the independence in terms of providing a client a platform that can be easily integrated with QAD, but just in case if they do need the external market data from other sources, those could be brought in as well.
Good.
So that is the solution. That is the scale of what we are able to do for the client.
Excellent. I think it's a good one to end on, for our content delivery here today, because first of all, it points out the realities that, we hear time and time again working with the Refinitiv team that obviously QAD is the ideal source for that market data. And, not only, is the native work there, but also the ability to pull through some other data sets as needed, but also the understanding that, there are other things going on in the customer's environment that need to be accounted for. And so when we join these things together, and enable them with QT, we think we really got a good winning solution for any one of your organizations that are along that spectrum of making the move from market QA all the way to QAD. So with that, Logan, we'd be happy to take any questions or that the group might have if folks want to jump in there. This is a slide that you should all feel free to share with your clients if you'd like. It's got some hyperlinks that are based on those client groups we talked about to be able to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. But with that, let's take some questions if we can.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Feel free. Does anybody on the line have any questions for the team?
I just want to say thanks, guys. This was really interesting, and really looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
I have a question from my side. I mean, what do you see as the biggest hurdle for engaging customers? I think one of the things that we find is that, sometimes even before they start with the data management, solution like QA Direct, they already have the thought process in mind for the actual, analytics or downstream processes. They just need to get the data source that feeds into that. So how have you overcome that in working with other customers?
So if they have the downstream analytics already in mind in terms of the tools that they want to use, if the question is about how can we integrate QAD faster into their data environment, right? Did I get the question, Marianne, correctly?
I mean, that's one option. I just, and that's one way to take it, because I see that there's a couple of challenges that we have with customers. One is that they already have analytics and they just need a data source. And so, yes, the way that you rephrase that is a good one. How do you integrate QA Direct faster then, if that's the case? But the other is maybe they're tied to their current analytical systems or doing it in-house. How do you, what has been a success story for you to really cross that bridge to say, I know that you know what you're doing, but here's how we can still assist within that space? I feel this in some way, shape, or form, it's a barrier to entry for customers, unless we get them right at the beginning of launching, something with also newcomers and fresh blood at a client site.
So how do we get them excited about QtPy when they already have an analytics platform that they understand and know firsthand?
Right, or staff on their side that could do cartwheels around Python and Jupyter notebooks and things like that.
Yeah. Right. So if they are doing cartwheels around Python and Jupyter Notebook, this is an extremely seamless way of accessing actually the data from multiple sources, including QAD. So the only thing that they need to do is they don't have to change that. One of the beauties of QtPy is precisely that, Marianne, which is don't change existing stuff that you're doing in terms of Python coding and whatever. QtPy, in terms of installing, it is a simple software that you would actually install just as any kind of Python package. And then they can get the whole benefits of whatever that we talked about. So they are incrementally enhancing whatever that they're doing immediately without having to change their workflows or anything like that. And by doing that, what they're also doing is actually, if you have QAD behind the scenes, right, they can immediately access the QAD data within their environment. So the integration of your QAD data into their existing platforms becomes almost seamless by installing this QtPy software. And installing it as in, it is a matter of, if someone is interested in, if they are doing in Python, it's including a package as part of the development process.
Kumar, could you go into, what I've seen us run some of the demos in the past, and we see folks working with like the Jupyter Notebook, for example, as a way to make data available. You see the model development, and then typically there's a waiting period. When QtPy isn't in the equation, you're typically waiting for data to be brought to the forefront in order to be crunched. And there's a big part of this that's all about eliminating that latency. Can you talk to that maybe? I think that's a big part of the story.
Sure. The latency is also, let us say that, if you consider the existing environments in the absence of QtPy, let's walk through these steps, right? What is involved in terms of bringing QAD data or some new data source into the picture? First, the quant will probably talk to some IT, or if the quant is capable himself, he will write some kind of a data loader. The data gets into a database. And from there, he has to provision and he has to do all of this complex SQL coding within Python to actually get the data into their platform. With QtPy, what happens is the data is automatically there in QAD. You have a straight connector, and there is no SQL that the quant needs to learn in terms of his or her ability to actually access the data. So their complexities gets minimized, if not eliminated, all of that IT related complexities. the speed with which they can actually access the new data set also immensely increases. So that has been our pitch in terms of none of these clients actually, majority of our clients didn't start from zero. These are mature clients. They've been in the market for some time in terms of quant processes. And what we are able to deliver to the clients is a better way of doing things in terms of optimizing their resources, optimizing their time in terms of getting to this data without at the same time not discarding what they have in terms of the process, because it's a natural fit into a Python or an R environment.
Right.
Yeah. If I may add to that, to those comments, in some cases, we know that clients, proof is in the pudding. They can see a demo, we can tell them what we want to tell them, but they need to feel it, judge it for themselves. There may be instances where we can work with the clients to win-win on both Refinitiv and our side via maybe some parallel testing, their own system that they're currently using now, and see how QDPI reacts in their environment, in a production or testing environment, and see the differences. So if that's the case, we can certainly have those conversations as well.
Cool. I think the last bit of it that I've really taken notice of lately in some of the customer conversations too is it kind of changes the way that the quants may actually write some of the models, and the way that they may have factors develop that make it much more efficient to write new models or modify models. And it's something that you don't think about as obvious, but it turns out to be a big time saver and value add for folks. And Kumar, I don't know if you could explain that just a quick bit so people can understand how that impacts them.
I think, as you said, it's about building these, building blocks and the ability to share, and not even when we talk about source control and capturing that, it is through very simple APIs. That's how we've done it. I hope, Marianne, that answers your question, or still some gaps are there?
No, I think that covered it between you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions from the group? I know we're running a minute or two past 2:15. We don't want to be disrespectful of your time, but if anybody's got anything else, we can certainly hang on and answer a couple more questions if you'd like.
Okay, well, if there are no questions right now, feel free. Well, I guess first off, thank you guys for taking the time to present to us today. I mean, it's really helpful to understand exactly what you guys are doing and how you can help with our customer conversations, specifically relating to this migration. We know it's a big effort and a big lift on our side, so we do appreciate you guys taking the time. And if there are any other follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me or to the team directly. We'd love to get some customer conversations going and see how we can work more closely together. But thank you again for taking the time for this webinar today.
Cool. And to that, Logan, I want to make it clear for the whole group. We understand the nature of these sensitive relationships. You guys have got some very big, important clients, and making sure they're well cared for is critical. And I will tell you from my seat, from a brand building perspective here at Kuberre, the number one thing that we're trying to build our brand around is being the best possible vendor to work with. We read, these teams that we're talking about are some of the crown jewels of their organizations, and they're sensitive assets, and we don't take it lightly that we're trusted to work with them. So, you have our pledge that we will work with you very closely and with great care to manage these relationships in a way that you're most comfortable. So we do look forward to that opportunity to meet with some of these folks and go deeper. And you can look to us to defend the relationship with all our energy. So thank you for that, Logan.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks. All right, with that, I'll save the recording and send it out to everyone. And thanks everyone for joining again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Bye now.
Bye.